Hi, Will from MusicTech here at the NAMM show with none other than Tom Waterman of Universal Audio. Tom, how on earth are you?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Thanks for coming by.
No worries. So we're looking at Luna then, and we're going a little bit more in-depth this time. So Luna, you're not calling it a DAW, but it is a digital audio production environment.
It's a recording system, is what we're calling it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, we'll start there. Let's start there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully people are familiar watching with Universal Audio, the long-standing heritage we've got, and the Apollo audio interfaces, which, you know, now with Apollo X, we have the Twin X, the Apollo X4, and the rack mount Apollo X series, which are, you know, industry standard Thunderbolt audio interfaces.
Yeah.
And so with those Thunderbolt interfaces, you now have access to, or will have in spring when this launches, the Luna recording system, which really transforms the Apollo and the workflow people are used to, which is Apollo console, the mixer that's running within the DSP of the interface, allowing you to change the sound of the preamps with Unison technology and record through the UAD processing in real time, you know, low latency workflow. Previously, you would do that with the console and then have some third-party recording platform.
Yeah.
And so things like punch-ins and more in-depth recording features were, you know, more of a considered workflow, whereas now with the Luna recording system, we've effectively taken your Apollo and just bolted it right into, at the deepest level, the workstation. So that's why it's a recording system, because you need a Thunderbolt Apollo to run it. It's a hardware and a software integrated solution, and really DAWs as DAW as a term is sort of something that came around when you had a software-only recording system as we moved into computer recording from tape and hard disk recording, you know, standalone recording. So that's fine, but this is not that. It's an entire system, you know.
So you say it's an entire system. How is it different from those Pro Tools TDM rigs, for instance?
Well, it works in a similar fashion to that. You know, the benefit of a DSP-based platform in that sense is that you have the ability to monitor in real time, but you had the trade-off of cost in that system, where you then needed more and more DSP processing because the whole thing ran in that. The benefit with Luna is that you're running the Luna application on the Mac, and you're leveraging the host CPU when you need to, so for mixing where latency is less critical, right?
Yeah.
Normally the workflow would then be to put your buffer size to 1024, and then obviously it becomes quite hard at that point when you've got 80 tracks and you're in a big mix to just overdub that one last tambourine part or something. So the benefit with Luna is that we take advantage of all that native processing for the main elements of Luna, which I'll get into, but the Luna extensions, which give you the multitrack tape and the Neve console emulation, or the summing that's in there, that really, those two things make Luna the most analog sounding workstation ever. They're running natively, so we leverage all of that, but then when you need to go into low latency modes for tracking, so you have input monitoring, you can record through different preamps and different effects processing, that's when the U82 Shark DSP on the interface becomes uniquely important. So, you know, the fact that you can buy an Arrow, for example, which is, you know, $400 to $500 depending on where you are, right, or in pounds, let's just say $400 to $500 something,
yeah,
and check out your currency, right? That, and with DSP on board and Luna, gives you the ability to have low latency workflow when you need it, but also the power of native, and there isn't another system that for that price point can offer that, right?
Right, okay.
We're comparing that to like a multi-$1,000 high-end previous recording platform.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that being the original Pro Tools TDM system, yeah, it was thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and all those types of, you know, systems, like we had Soundscape in the UK that was quite popular. There's loads of things that tried to do that type of thing, but this is, you know, a whole new way.
Okay, well let's just jump in then and have a quick look at the interface. Can you show us the tape very quickly?
I can.
I'm intrigued to know what is Oxide, the tape emulation inside. What's that based on?
Okay, well, so, I mean, let's just load up the mixer here in Luna. So this is now effectively like a much more elaborate version of the Apollo console, but running within the workstation. So we have this tape Luna extension here, this slot tape. And so first up, you can load different machines. So what we'll do is we'll just clear the session flat. So I'm going to select all my tracks here, and we're going to go to tape here and select no tape, and wipe everything out of the session really quickly, okay? So, in fact, let's go back to how things were, how things can still be. And we'll also remove some inserts here. Oxide tape itself was a UAD2 plugin here. And so what it's based on is like a really efficient version of the Studer machine in one particular configuration with less controls, so you just have the ability to move tape speed and alignment, but really it's about having two knobs, how much do you push it, and then you get this squish, okay?
Yeah. And so is this on by default when you're tracking, or
so
does this depend on how much DSP you have?
Well, so that is the UAD2 plugin, which we're now running in an insert, but if I remove this and go to our tape slot, we're able to add Oxide as one of our tape machines.
And that's native now?
And that's now native, so it's the same sound, but we have the ability to put that on all of these tracks. So let's say I'm going to grab these tracks here with Shift Select.
And that's regardless of how much DSP you have?
This is now running on the Mac, so as long as you have a powerful computer, the sound of tape comes from Luna's native extensions, okay?
And so these, what are you calling them, the native extensions?
They're Luna extensions.
Luna extensions, Those can only exist in Luna then?
Exactly, Right. So, and they're in the fabric of Luna, which is why we have this like multi-machine workflow. So if we take a look at this even further, this is machine C on all of these tracks. I can very quickly bypass the tape on those channels, so I can do an A-B between tape, no tape. And this is now in the fabric of the workstation. Then we could take the other tracks in our session up to here, and I'll use machine B, which is the Studer A800 Luna extension. The cool thing here is when Luna's available and you download this, which by the way, if I haven't said, is going to be free, so Luna will come with your Thunderbolt Apollo interface or the Arrow. Oxide comes with it too, so you have a version of that in here, but you'll be able to buy the Studer A800 Luna extension. The cool thing here is if you own the UAD2 plugin already, then we'll give you the Luna extension version.
One of my questions is, why is it so important to have that tape built in? I mean, was there something we were missing when we've been recording into like Logic and Pro Tools and Ableton?
Well, have you ever recorded like 24 channels at once on a multitrack and hit playback on a 2-inch machine and then hit playback from a DAW?
I've not.
So for the people who have, when we found this when we were doing the artist session with Jack R. King that we've been using at the NAMM show here, that it sounds great. We're used to DAW recording, fine. But as soon as you hit playback off a 2-inch machine, there's something in the tone of it, the way it glues together. And so we have kind of been missing it. And of course, that's why UA made the UAD2 plugin, so that you could get the sound of tape. I think actually, from memory, we are the first company to have ever done like a legit 2-inch tape machine, magnetic, physical model. And so the Studer was, groundbreaking at the time, and now it's sort of integrated into the Luna environment, right?
So you're trying to recapture the magic of tape. You're not necessarily going for pure sound. It's not meant to be completely transparent. It's doing something else. Yeah.
It's you have head bumps, so you get like an extra 50, 60 hertz kind of thump, which is great on kick drums.
Right.
There's transient softening going on, and the beautiful thing with the Studer extension, if you have a look here, Will, we've got individual noise switches for each channel, so something you couldn't do with real tape machine is get rid of the hiss in a fade out or at the top and the tail of the track. And I'm sure a lot of the pro mixers and people who are watching this, people who use plugins that have noise emulation in them, are going to go, it's great, but then when I get to the fade out I have to automate and get rid of this noise. Well, but with the Studer A800 version here, you have a noise switch on each channel, so you're able to make it quiet when you need it to be, which you couldn't do on a real machine.
Of course.
The cool thing here is each channel's got a variable saturation, or in this case, because I'm selected all these tracks here, that's now ganged control over how much I'm driving everything into and out of the tape. We have bias controls individually, so you could take a really edgy vocal or an edgy hi-hat, which is one of my favorite things to do, and just over-bias the tape machine so it loses top-end response. Right, so really you have a workstation that's like voiceable, right, and has all this kind of cohesion. But the really cool thing here is it's got 4 tape decks, A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
And you can run, for example, 4 different A800 machines. It's like having 4 machines in the machine room slaved together without losing tracks to do timecode. And then you can, for example, vary the tape formulation. So if we're in play here and all these tracks are going to tape, I could try GP9 at 15 IPS with a different calibration alignment, and that's now moved across this slot, which is tape machine B, for example. And then, we could have all of our drums on a different machine, and this is now way beyond recording to tape even. You can't do it without multiple machines and a hell of a lot of money and time,
And on the instrument side then, you've got you're finally doing instruments as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a double whammy. What's happening there?
So Luna instruments are again running natively in the Luna environment. So they're exclusive to Luna. They run only in Luna, but it's the first time for many years we've been asked to do this. And so we've launched 3 instruments at the show. The first of which actually comes with Luna. So when you try this, you'll be able to write very quickly. So in the instrument tracks here, we have the instrument slot, and we'll go to Assign, and we'll load up Shape, which is the first instrument. So this is Shape. I'll just hit stop. And it's worth mentioning, these instrument slots here will let you load audio units. So any AU instrument third party that you need for writing, run it here.
And can you load audio unit plugins as well? In
the inserts.
Yeah, right.
So it's the tape and the Luna extensions, and also the Neve console, which we'll go back to, they're running within Luna as our thing. But then you have the insert bank where you have 8 inserts, and they could either load U82 plugins running on satellites or on your Apollo, or they can load audio units. And there's some really deep features we've put in here for mixing, and the same for production. You have our instruments, but you can also run the ones you know and love, right?
So what are the other 2 instruments that you have in here then?
Well, we have a Mini Moog synthesizer and also a Revell grand piano, which is a Steinway.
Can we just bring up the Mini Moog very quickly?
We can.
Is this like the... how is this different from other Mini Moog emulations?
Well, it's UA.
Right.
I mean, I know that sounds really it sounds a bit full on, but we've been doing physical modeling for almost 20 years, and hopefully everyone who knows us knows the reputation. We work with the original manufacturer. It's signed off by Moog. It's component level, very deep science. And in our opinion, it's the closest ever emulation to a Moog.
And so this Mini Moog emulation, is it doing polyphonic as well? Because you're in the digital domain, surely that's possible, or is it just
potentially?
Monophonic?
But we like to do it historically correct in that sense. Right. So it's a classic monosynth.
And
right?
And the piano then? What's the deal with that?
So. Well, and also it's worth mentioning the Moog and the piano. So if I load the Revell, they'll be both cost options. So you'll buy them and add them into your Luna fabric.
Okay, and can these only be used in Luna then? Or can they? Okay, right.
Yeah. They're exclusive to the platform. So Revell is a Steinway Model B piano in Oceanway Studios. Has some really nice features like the ability to very quickly blend between close mics and room mics.
That's a nice little interface as well.
Like your little Hollywood spotlights.
I do like that, yeah.
But so one thing we've done with the piano too, obviously people have been sampling pianos for a long time. There are some great ones,
of course,
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
You can load them and run them here. But with Revell, we've used our physical modeling science and all the stuff we've been doing over the years to do something called ultra resonance, where we take into account all of the sympathetic resonances of strings oscillating and being excited by other strings, and the resonance of the acoustic body of the piano. If you look at the type of modeling we did with Ox, where we've effectively emulated acoustic transducers in cabinets and things like that. There's a similar type of thing being applied to a grand piano here, which is what makes this really, in our opinion, the most detailed and realistic grand piano instrument made.
Okay, let's just talk about the editing capabilities and the mixing capabilities of Luna then, because a lot of people who have UA stuff are very invested in their own DAWs already. Won't necessarily want to learn new shortcuts and that kind of thing. What's the pull then for people who are primarily mixing or trying to do automation, that kind of thing?
Shall I just quickly talk about the Shape instrument, or we'll come back to that?
We can talk about Shape now, yeah.
Because I loaded it up,
yeah,
and then we'll come back to that.
Yeah, of course.
So just to cap it quickly for everyone watching, that's included with Luna. The other 2 are purchasable.
Shape comes with.
Yeah, and this comes with content from us. It's a synthesis and sampling engine, but you also have things from Spitfire Audio as content in here, and Orange Tree and Loops de la Creme. So that's like a toolkit you can write with. There's stuff on that you can check out. So that's super cool. So that's all the instruments. But when we're in the mixing world, one of the biggest things for me is that we have trim automation included as standard in a free workstation you can try.
So for people who don't know the trim automation workflow and what the advantage is of that, what is that exactly?
So, it comes from working on a real console where you would effectively write faders and write automation to do, small things like syllable control, or maybe you're just bringing down the start of a chord so that it gets out of the way of the first beat of the bar, and all this sort of micro automation, we can call it as such, which people are now very commonly drawing in a volume automation. But as many of you will know, by the time you start doing lots of teeny tiny automation data, at the end of a mix, when you just want your vocal up a decibel or two in the chorus, having to grab that wiggly line and move that thing with the mouse is a pain, and having no trim automation, so you're just fighting the fader that's moving in the mixer all the time.
Especially if you have motorized faders, it can be a pain.
Yeah, so with trim automation, if I show you here, like if we go on the bass track here, I'll put it into volume. I think we have some output routing here. Let's just quickly go back to where it needs to be. Here we go. So let's go into output volume. So I'll just say that's my automation data on here, and we hit play. That bass fader here is now moving up and down in read, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But it's very hard now to just go, I want the bass up 2 dB for the whole song.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing here is you can just put it into trim automation, the fader goes gold. We still have that automation data working underneath, but now the fader's effectively nulled out, and it's a trim on top of.
So it's like having it running into another fader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's wiggling and one's just static, ready for you to move.
Got it.
And so I can now just do a vocal up mix or a vocal down mix or whatever I need to do.
That's very
right there.
Yeah.
And some workstations don't have it, and others you have to pay thousands of dollars to get that feature.
So
here it is.
Was it Pro Tools HD?
I believe that might be the case.
Like
yeah.
The very expensive one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that's a really big highlight from a mix point of view.
Yeah, sure.
We also have things like, you can automate every parameter very quickly. Output routing's very simple, creating buses, and going back to the Luna extensions, being able to mix into a mix bus or a selection of subgroups or internal buses with the Neve Summing on them. So you get that three-dimensional punch and the sound of a 1272 mix amp. It just transforms Luna into this, enormously musical sounding workstation. Combine it with the tape and all the other things and our UAD plugin library.
Yeah.
It's a powerful, powerful feature set.
There's a lot going on for a free DAW.
Yeah, I think that's been the highlight of the show really, is people assume, it's not going to do X, it's not going to do Y, or it's going to be more limited. But honestly, I think for sort of 80-90% of music makers, it's going to do everything you need. The edge case is maybe surround sound mixing or something, or Atmos. Okay, sure. Fine, but that's like a very niche market,
Kind of not who you're going for with this at all.
Yeah, this is the thing for Luna, and this is the thing for UA in general, is that we have a craftsmanship mentality. It's about sound quality, it's about ease of use, it's about the music first. We're all musicians, we're all fans of music. Nearly everyone here plays an instrument, and we just find we want the technology to disappear, right? So you'll probably find this if you use UA plugins. You load it up, it sounds good the minute it's loaded up. That's not by accident, it's because our plugin team do hundreds and hundreds of hours of listening to make sure the default knob positions are amazing.
Yeah, right.
And that's exactly what's happening now, not just in a plugin, but in an entire environment, right?
And so, how long has this been in the making then? Because it seems like everything sort of now fits together into an ecosystem.
I guess Lev and Bill and all the guys in the product team, we have to give them some kudos for how well structured their minds are, let's say, because Apollo and the Luna space theme, they link so heavily, and I know Luna's been in development for well over 5 years. We're talking about a vision that's only now seen by the public, that's been cultivated for years and years and years.
So Apollo was always going to Luna. It was always going to make that trip. It was always going to arrive on the moon eventually.
I guess so. I mean,
that's a very long game for a pun.
Yeah.
I admire it. Don't get me wrong. I admire it.
I mean, Lev is the only one who could probably answer that fully, but I think he has a game plan, right? And hats off to the man. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's Luna. There's so much more in this to go through. Just to sort of bring it back to some of the cool features, like the integration is so key. You have unison and stuff in the Apollo that, like record effects where you can track through processing. That's all saved in your session and persistent, right?
So for instance, if you have a couple of recording setups that you want to use, that you have going on in your studio, like you do podcasts, but you also do, say...
Drum tracking,
and then vocal recording. You can have like a vocal recording template, and it loads up all of your, you could say have 4 microphones set up, for instance, and it would have the right unison preamps on each one.
Yeah,
It'll just be ready to go when you open the session.
Yeah, or even, if you want to go further than that, you may just have an X8P with 8 channels on it, and you use the first 2 always for podcasting and chatting, and then you have a couple of channels there that you use to record your drum kit and a few synths connected, and you could literally have the inputs pre-configured with the chains you require, and whatever track you arm in Luna will just pull in those settings, right? Okay. It will even import settings from Apollo console, so console's not going away. If you use third-party workstations for mastering and things like offline tuning and offline noise, restoration and stuff like that, you'll still need Apollo console to handle the sort of monitor section and all of the processing in there. So it will even, if you have presets there that you've already made over the last few years, you can put Luna in a console tracking mode here and just bring in that front end, and then it's like integrated into your workstation. I mean, stuff like that is why we've done this. It's just a level of integration you don't have between, a left hand and a right hand on different bodies. It's all in the same place now. It's us,
And then, is there any integration with other DAWs as well? Can you work across different DAWs and work with Luna as well?
Well, I think we expect people to try it alongside what they know and love as well. So it will import AAF, so you can export from your workstation in AAF format and bring that in here.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you have a really, really powerful bounce to disk functionality. So if you check this out here, you can select your sources, either a main mix down, or I could just do my buses, all my mix and my buses, and individual tracks, for example. So you could bounce all of that stuff in one pass, with or without effects and panning, and just create all your stems. So if you had a drum subgroup and a vocal subgroup, you've already got stems bounced out ready for delivery for remix. So it's pretty fast.
So assistants in all the studios all over the place will be breathing a sigh of relief potentially.
Well, drink less coffee, they'll get more sleep. Hopefully,
it's one for the little guy.
Yeah.
Cool. And this is available when, Tom?
So spring 2020, so a few months from now.
Okay, well if we can try it out ASAP, that would be great.
ASAP.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Thanks, dude. Cheers. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.